tell, then you see the road. I'm out to my soul into the size. Whenever the smoke clear out of my face and my picture perfect. Do it. All of that green together, the truth, yeah. Tell you the.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to Cypherfics. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the 18th part of What If BEN10 Meets the Boys? Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of AU-Fan62 on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. BEN10 universe. Just before the boys, girls and Ben land in. Gwen is pacing as her grandfather Max Tennyson works in fixing the null void projector. How's it coming? She questions, knowing it's been around 10 minutes since Ben went in. Almost there. Max tells her, then notices Gwen's worried expression. Don't worry, Gwen. Ben's gonna be okay. He tries to reassure. You said the null void was there. The plumbers sent the worst of the worst. Like an alien Alcatraz. She reminds him as she starts pacing again. Now Ben is stuck there with both Kevin and Vilgax. I know he's got the MSTR control now, but dash. Gwen. Max gets her attention by kneeling down and putting a hand on his granddaughter's shoulder. I know it looks bad, but have faith in Ben. He's gonna come out of this in one piece. Suddenly a portal seems to form in the exact spot where Kevin, Vilgax, and Ben were sucked into. You did it. Gwen cheered. Max narrows his eyes as he stands back up. That wasn't me, the projector isn't operational yet. He tells her. Gwen then has a realization. That must mean. They both looked at each other. Ben. They each exclaim, thinking he must have figured out some way to get back. The portal then lets out a bright flash, and when it fades it reveals another rust bucket. Gwen raises an eyebrow at this as she says. Or not. Only to be proven wrong when Ben fell out of the door, along with some new unknown figures. Boys Universe, Vought Tower. Ashley stood outside the door to the office holding files and a tablet. She took a moment and a few deep breaths to steady herself. She opened the door and saw Edgar was sitting in his chair with his back to her, looking out to the city as the sun set. Evening, Ashley. He said. Hello, sir. She greets. I have the reports for today's. She struggles to find the appropriate word, but eventually decides on. Events. Well, don't keep me in suspense. The CEO of Vought tells her. Ashley started placing files on the desk. In total, we have 13 heroes dead, most of them missing their heads of large parts of their bodies. 25 more heroes seriously injured, 9 of whom may never recover. She informs. Slowly the elderly man turns his chair around and picks up the files to read. His face still surprisingly neutral, despite hearing of a bigger soup casualty event, since Wrench was still throwing an actual wrench in all of Vaught's plans until the 70s. How many of those heroes had just renewed their contracts and were in the middle of new projects? He asks. Ashley looked at her tablet. Nearly all of them, but at least several of those are done, and Jetrocket's film was 76% complete. I've been told they can alter the ending with a stand-in. She tells him, then adds. As for the others, it's kind of a mash-up. I've been told we'll have to scrap at least several projects permanently. And our generous offer to cover the damage caused during the ridiculous RV chase. Edgar asked, even though they don't have any real legal obligation to cover damages to property, it's still good PR, shows they care less about money, despite the contrary. Since Vought is covering all the damage to both public and private property, Ashley checked her tablet. It's going to cost us in the ballpark of at least $2.6 million, and we're still just figuring out the invoices, and that doesn't include damaged Vought property. On the bright side, the city will give us a tax break because of that. She informs. Edgar looked down at the files on the table and raises an eyebrow. One thing I'm confused on. He tells her before putting the files down. I heard young Mr. Tennyson and his friends are no longer a problem. How is that possible? This is where he started to genuinely look at least a little perplexed. I had confidence in Kevin 11 and Homelander, but not that much. Yes. Ashley took out a file with pictures of the boys, Kimiko, Elena and Ben. It's been confirmed at the scene that Tennyson go into that F-roided-up RV which then vaporized, likely from that crazy technology. She gives him a brief rundown. Homelander couldn't find anything and even Tech Knight examined the scene. Smiles at him since for the first time since his arrival Ben will no longer be a threat to Vought. Not a trace, those F-airs got vaporized. She adds a little too enthusiastically. Edgar raised an eyebrow at this. Are you celebrating the death of a child, 2 children actually? He asked. Ashley's smile quickly disappeared. No. Of course not. She denied right away. If that will be all. You can get started on the memorial event for our fallen heroes. He tries to dismiss. Ashley however was not finished. There is one more thing. Spoils of war. She adds. Come again? Edgar asks. Well, during the chase and fight, several of those crazy but weapons fell off the RV. She says, handing him the tablet and he swiped through several pieces of plumber tech. We managed to collect all of it before the cops arrived on the scene. This SHT is straight out of a sci-fi movie, and now it's all Vought's. Well then, it seems today may be a win after all. Edgar says, impressed by this part of the report as he hands her back the tablet, have everything taken to our R&D lab. No one else is to know about this. I want a list of everyone who gathered this technology. He instructs. Actually there was only one. Ashley tells him. All the technology was collected by one of our own heroes. Blur. Blur, he's that speedster from Teenage Kicks, correct? Edgar recalls. Ashley nods. He showed up on the scene, but stayed out the fight after he saw someone get dismembered. He followed and grabbed any tech that he saw. Figured it would be his way into the 7 someday. Edgar gave a small smile. The ambition of the youth. The CEO then gets up and pours himself a drink. Take a few days off, Ashley, you deserve it. He tells her. Come back for next meeting after the 7 finishes recovering. Oh thank you sir, but that's not necessary. Ashley tries to wave off. Ashley. Edgar simply says. Take the time off. He repeats. Homelander and Kevin are taking a few days while they're cleared, which they will be. Maeve is temporarily blind and can't drive, Starlight is recovering from being attacked by a flying squid alien, Black Noir from somehow being launched into the air and falling into New Jersey, Deep is in Ohio and A-Train is recovering from a heart attack. He reminds her. Take the time off, there won't be anything in the docket. Okay sir. Thank you. Ashley relents then leaves. Edgar then walks to the window and looks outside. Then without warning starts to laugh, after a few moments. That son of a b. He says with an amused smile to no one. Elsewhere. In the home of Madeline Stillwell, the, technically still, VP of Vought was waiting by her desk for a Hail Mary from a while back. She got word from the scientists specifically specializing in restoring it that they were close. So she sat waiting message of what it was, hoping it would be something useful, staring at. The words, dear, don't plan, young uni dash almost, and my free dash only guessing what it could be. Bing. She got an alert on her computer. It was an email from the lab. It was labeled, here it is with a PDF link explaining exactly what is on it. As she was about to open it. Oi. A distinct British voice speaks before. Bark bark bark. Shooting the computer several times, destroying it. Billy Butcher walked in with C4 explosive strapped attached to a vest. Put this on. He orders as he places the vest on the table, ignoring the sounds of Teddy Stillwell's cries. You should dash. Stillwell tries to speak, but gets interrupted by a gunshot to a picture of her son. Bark. Unless it's about where my wife is, I don't want to hear it. Butcher tells her. So put that on, shut the F up, and as a promise I'll wake your nanny so she can get your CNTF kid out of here. Stillwell nods and complies. As Butcher ushers the terrified nanny and child out of the house with a threat to blow them up if they call the police, he goes back to Stillwell. The now bound Stillwell tries again to speak. You should know dash. But Butcher wasn't having it and gagged her, then to make his point he pressed his thumb on the trigger if the explosives. I don't give a F. Then takes her phone. Vought Tower. Homelander was at the 7 conference room brooding. Sure, he won and BEN10 was spinning the story that Ben, Butcher, and the rest of their gang are cowardly on the run. But it still felt absent, hollow, like storming a hill that the enemy just abandoned. Just then the door opened, revealing a humanoid Kevin, chugging down a Monster energy drink. Man, good stuff. The 11-year said with satisfaction as he tossed the can haphazardly into the hallway. Good you're still here. Walks and sits down in his spot, the deceased translucent's chair. What do you want, Kevin? Homelander asked. Tennyson on silver platter. Kevin said. But I didn't get that, I got that big guy with the French dude, but no Tennyson. He complained. Something stuck out at Homelander when heard that. Wait, what about Butcher, Billy Butcher? He asked. Black hair, beard, British, says the word CNT in at least every other sentence. There wasn't a British guy. Kevin tells him, recalling only meeting 2 people in the cage. Just then a call comes through. Homelander picks it up. What? He says with aggression. I have Miss Stillwell on the line, she's requesting you. The receptionist told him. Put her through. He said, then when he heard the like transfer said. What do you want, Madeline? Hello, CNT. Came the distinct voice of William Butcher. Before Homelander could say anything, Butcher spoke. At the lady CNT's house, she's with me. 10 minutes, no cops. Then the line went dead. Was that him? Kevin asked, and gets a nod from Homelander. So partner, how we handling this? No, I got it. Homelander dismisses. Like you and Ben, William and I have a history. He informs him. What kind of history? Kevin wonders. As Homelander began walking out he said. It involves me and his wife. Kevin sat there as he watched the 7-leader walk out. I don't get it. He ignorantly says, both not understanding the context clues and the history. Stillwell's house. As Butcher and Madeline were waiting it began to rain. How appropriate. They thought, then a small thud got their attention. Well. About f***ing time. Butcher muttered, and in a soft tone continued. I know you can see through the ceiling. You try to kill me and my trigger finger goes soft. He threatens holding up the detonator. Now why don't you stop playing rapey Santa and come down and join us? A few moments later footsteps can be heard and Homelander walks in. Hey there. He greets, surprisingly cheerful. William Butcher. Mind if I call you Billy, right? Why, you are pretty darn impressive. I mean, especially for, one of you. He says, referring to his exploits. Maybe. Butcher began speaking. It's 'cause every other day since the kid got here I get to watch him beat the FSHT out of you like kid beats a piñata for the candy. He tells him. Yeah, but where's your little cheat watch? Homelander countered, knowing Ben wasn't here. Even without that you're still not afraid. You're angry. Pause. Because of Becca. Listen, that's a complicated story, but first I wanna say she came on to me. 3 times by the way. Makes a gesture and movement to signify their activities. It's the fame, happens all the time. You should see how many PWN fantasy stuff I get, it's both flattering and kinda creepy. He tells Butcher, as if it gives him some kind of excuse. Butcher does not respond, just stares at Homelander with vengeance in his heart. Oh come on. Nothing to say. Homelander taunts. Butcher still does not say anything. Let me guess. Homelander continued as rubbed his temples, pretending to think the situation over. You hooked up bombs to her, 'cause you think I killed your wife, and yada yada you wanna take it out on me? Did I get that right? He correctly guesses. You're also CNT that deserves to die like wounded dog. Butcher adds before pointing out. Benji almost did that the other day. Homelander relents in this by saying. Close, but no cigar. But before you go through with this I gotta ask, what proof do you have? He asks. Butcher's reply was non-existent. Homelander smiles at his. Seriously man. Now's not the time to be strong and silent. I mean you had the kid with you for God's sakes, the one who sent NASA a formula to make efficient rocket fuel from some coconut oil and a pile of trash. He points out. When Butcher stayed silent Homelander chuckled. Seriously this is based on a feeling, a hunch. I mean what did you hope to accomplish? He asks amused by this. To hurt ya. Butcher answers finally. Only unlike the kid I can't turn into some F-diamond alien CNT and beat you like a drum. In fact if I could, I'd break every one of your bones with a crowbar then step on your skull enough till I can see your brain, he tells him having fantasized about that, then holds up the detonator. But I gotta settle for this. Well that was vivid. Homelander says. Thank you for that. Just give me a second. He requests then goes to Stillwell where they have a hushed conversation. By the end of it Homelander and Madeline share a kiss before Homelander tells her. Thank you for finally telling me the truth. Funny thing about the truth. A new voice speaks up, another British one, this one sounding more like a polite Londoner as opposed to Butcher's. Butcher and Homelander turn to see a man with fair skin, gray eyes, and black hair wearing a white lab coat over a white shirt with a brown vest and black tie, black pants, and black shoes. He also wore goggles with green lenses around his neck. All want it, but sadly not all can handle it. Butcher rose an eyebrow. The F did you come from? He asked. William, Jonathan, good to see you both again. He greets cheerfully. Shame it couldn't be under better circumstances. Both Butcher and Homelander look at each other in confusion. We've met? Homelander questions. Many, many years ago. Labcoat nodded before pondering for a moment. Or maybe centuries, hard to keep track sometimes. But for now I'm just here to pick up Madeline and then go retrieve young Theodore. He informs them. Homelander chuckled at this. She's not going anywhere. He tells him with a shake of his head. The man in the lab coat smiled and nodded his head. Correct, because she's already gone. He looked to the side, as did Butcher and Homelander who saw that where Stillwell had been sitting was empty. The F? Homelander said, then turned back to the unknown individual. Where is she? Safe. The man cryptically says, showing no fear. And far from your reach. Homelander looks at Butcher. You brought him? Never seen this CNT before. Butcher tells him. Not to worry William. The man says, suddenly appearing by Butcher's side. One benefit is I have all the time in the universe to explain. Places a hand on Butcher's shoulder. Just not right now. You have to go to Serge and Marvin. With that they disappeared, leaving only Homelander. Time stream. The man in the lab coat then used his powers to travel to several hours earlier. Just before Huey came to save Frenchie and MM in the warehouse from Vought and Black Noir. Once he got there time stood absolutely still as he took everything out of Butcher's pockets and of his person that could be used to pick a lock. The British time traveler walked through the warehouse, grabbed some dirt and dust on the ground before walking upstairs and throwing it above the midpoint of the room. He then walked outside and placed a couple of small rocks close by the door so a certain someone would kick them. With that he pulled out a stopwatch and left. Time stream. The Brit then appeared back to Homelander at Stillwell's house. "What the F did you do?" Homelander questioned after the man came back. The man finally stopped smiling. "I'm sorry to see you turned out as expected, Jonathan," he said. "No child deserves the upbringing you had to go through, but it can't excuse what you've done." The man then sighs. "You know, John, there are counterparts of you who got to where you are now whether they had loving parents and normal childhoods or not." He begins. "They all thought they were invincible to sooner or later they all fail and eventually they all die. But some do escape the pit they dug themselves in, you better hope you're one of them." Homelander narrowed his eyes and blasted towards him, but before he reached him, Paradox disappeared and Homelander crashed through a wall. He recovered and ran back in and tried to find him, but there was nothing. Suddenly he stepped on something. He looked down to see the bomb vest Butcher had strapped onto Madeline. "You little dash dot." Boom. He was cut off by the explosion. BEN10 Dimension. 10 minutes after Ben and company arrived. And that's pretty much it. Ben concluded, recapping the events in alternate universes. The boys and girls standing a few paces behind him. "So let me this straight," Max begins to say, rubbing his temples as he processes this information. "Instead of the null void, you got sent to another Earth that's about 10 years into the future, where there are a bunch of superheroes." Gwen chimes in. "But most aren't not heroes. They're corrupt fame mongers and they all were all made and work for this VOT company. And you've been working with these 6 as a black ops team, fighting against the fake heroes and exposing their crimes," Max said. Back to Gwen with. "Plus you had to fight Kevin and Vilgax who got sent to that world too." Max's turn again. "And you," points to Huey, "found a rust bucket on your Earth, and with plumber gear managed to break out your friends as they got caught." Gwen then points to them. "Until you messed with the null void projector and ended up here." The boys, Kimiko and Elena nod and Huey speaks up. "Well, it was Butcher, but yeah. That sums it up." "Oi!" the Brit exclaims offended. Gwen looks at Ben, "And you did all that in the 10 minutes since you left. That's gotta be a new record for you." "Yeah, but he was definitely there for months," says. "How's that possible?" Max ponders this for a moment. "It could be your Earth moves at a faster time than ours, or vice versa, or your return trip could have sent you through time as well as space." Scratches his head. "This is all just theoretical, of course." "Okay, I'm still having trouble getting all of this," Gwen says, rubbing her head. "Well, how about you 3 catch up, a little family reunion, and we'll just enjoy this lovely view," Butcher suggests. "And you are?" Max asks, with a raised eyebrow. "Oh, where are our manners?" Butcher says with a polite, yet unusually creepy, smile. "Name's William Butcher, that's Mother's Milk, Huey, Frenchie, Kimiko and Elena," he introduces. "Mother's Milk? Is Thag really your name?" Gwen asks. "Yeah, I'm not sure about that either," Ben tells her. "His first name is actually Marvin," Huey informs them. "Really?" Ben questions and receives a nod from him. "Anyway, you lot got some catching up, so we'll just be in our own RV until your little chin wag is all done," Butcher tells them, and the boys head into the RV they were in earlier. "Okay, so again start from the beginning," Max tells Ben. Well, Ben began. Scene cut. Inside the rust bucket from the boys' universe just sort of sat around. Without gas they couldn't go anywhere, and since they were in another dimension they didn't know what to exactly expect. Sudden Butcher began chuckling. He ha. The gang started to look at him as he began laughing harder. Ha ha ha. His laugh now resembling that of a hyena as he slammed the table he shared with and Frenchie, while Elena and Kimiko were in the front sets and Huey was taking off the suit. Butcher's laughing, should we be worried? Huey asked the others. Frenchie, who was staring at Britt nodded. Probably. Ah, are you okay? Elena asked, poking her head from the passenger seat. Butcher nods as he regains his breath. I'm eagle cry giddy. He tells them, the cry of an eagle causing Huey to look around a bit. And for the first time years, I ain't being sarcastic. Frenchie then adds. Yes, we should definitely be worried. Lads and ladies, Butcher addresses, gesturing to Kimiko and Elena at the latter part. Do you know what we did today? A whole new level of crazy. States with a shrug. Butcher smiles proudly as he says. We took out more soup goat bleeding in the last couple hours, than we have in the last decade. All because of Huey and this beauty. Bootford gestures to the rust bucket. Imagine what'll happen when we get back. He says with glee. Huey was a little skeptical. If we get back. Knowing they got here entirely by accident. Ye a little faith Huey. Butcher tells him. Hey, Elena chimes in. Does anyone find it weird that when Ben explained all the crazy stuff that happened he left out the whole translucent being killed? She reminds them. The boys and Kimiko look to each other and realize that during Ben's explanation he failed to mention translucent. In fact it didn't look like he harbored any residual anger from finding out. Think he was protecting them from the truth? Huey asks. Nah. Shakes his head. No way he'd leave something like that out. Kimiko then signs a suggestion to Elena. What did she say? Frenchie questions. She said what if he forgot after he got hit a bunch of times? Elena translates. Did he really get hit that many times that he just forgot? Huey asks. Well, the kid took on both Homelander and that Kevin ship horn. Butcher points out, the horn of some ship or buoy censoring him at the end. Though only Huey looked confused. Maybe. I know that look. Says. If he did forget, you think keeping it from him is the best thing? Yes. Butcher answers after a moment. But I can't stop ya if you lot wanna tell him. Guys. Elena says. They're done. Talking. Seeing they stepped out of their RV. Outside. Everyone gathered outside, the view of the falls providing a perfect scenery. So, Huey said, filling the awkward. Well. Grandpa Max began. After what Ben told us and from what we can tell, you folks have nowhere to go and we owe you for taking care of my grandson. He tells them, putting a hand on Ben's shoulder. Which means what exactly? Butcher asks with a raised eyebrow. Gwen sighs as she says. You guys can come with us until we figure out a way to get you back home. If you want to. Max says. I can figure a way to set up new lives here if you don't want to go back, but I get the feeling you all got unfinished business. The elder offers. Does that mean? Elena asks. Yup. Road trip. Ben exclaims excited, causing Elena and Kimiko high five. Road trip? Just like that? Asks, surprised by how quickly that took. This place is unreal. Cartoon Network. Frenchie whispers to reminding him what he said to Kevin when they were held captive. I told you. This is gonna be awesome. Ben cheered. And when we get back, home loser, Kevin and Vought's goons are be locked up like translucent. He added, confirming to the others he forgot about what actually happened. Yeah, they won't know what hit Butcher adds after a moment of hesitation. Max raises an eyebrow at this before going back to his rust bucket. Let me get you some fuel and we'll be on our way. He says. Gwen sighed, seeing Ben blab to the guys about what they'll see and do. Well, at least I won't be the only girl. Then sees they're excited like Ben, deflating her hopes. I don't know how it's possible, but this summer just got way weirder. Boys Universe. Mallory's house. It's been one day since Butcher and Huey came to Grace Mallory and then tore up a large section of New York City. Admittedly, she was impressed with how they inflicted so many casualties to Vought. However, she was retired now. Mallory takes out her binoculars and looks at birds just like she's been doing for however long she's been doing. As she looks out, she hears a very un-Butcher-like British voice speak up. Lovely day, isn't it? She turns in surprise to see a man in a lab coat with goggles hanging on his neck, staring out to the distance. Oh, look, a northern harrier, don't see too many those. Though I get the feeling you aren't much interested. He says as he looks towards her. Who the F are you, lab coat? Mallory demands to know, surprised he was able to sneak up on her without being noticed or even making a sound. Oh, that's right, this is the first time we meet. He says. My apologies, you do this for as long as I have everything just blurs together. He cryptically explains. Mallory pulls out a gun. Who are you? The man in the lab coat just smiles. You know, Grace, you should really make sure your weapons are loaded. Pulls out a bunch of bullets from his pocket and drops them. Mallory then notices the shift in the weight of the gun and checks to find all the bullets gone, even the one in the chamber. Moving on, you can call me Paradox, and I brought you a gift. He says, pulling out a folded piece of paper. Before Mallory could ask any more questions, the man calling himself Paradox spoke again. Before you ask more time-consuming questions, you should really look at this. He tells her. Mallory takes it and sees it's a children's drawing with crayon. She's not amused. What is this SHT? She wants to know. Take a closer look, Grace. Paradox instructs. Grave looks again and notices nothing special. A poorly drawn photo of stick figures, one is Bugger, suggesting they are the parent or guardian. Then her heart stops as she sees the names on the corner of the page. Her grandchildren's name. Don't worry, they don't all end up as artists, just one, and it's actually quite good. Paradox quells her, somehow knowing she had a talk with her grandkids many years ago back. Stop screwing with me, my grandkids are dead. Grace says, throwing the paper on the ground, thinking this is some elaborate trick. No, just in a pocket dimension where as long as they remain they shall not age. Paradox tells her. I whisked them there just as Lamplighter's flames were about to make contact. Luckily he didn't notice the screams were just of a recording. He informs as Mallory turns to him in shock. Apologies for the deception, but things needed to be exactly in place for this to work. He explains to her, his face visibly saddened for her. Mallory is about to ask a question, but Paradox beats her to the punch. I can't tell you what, but now that you know your grandchildren are alive, here's a little extra motivation to get them back. I can only bring them back home when Vought and the Seven, specifically Homelander, are defeated. What are you, a soup? Mallory wants to know. Paradox shakes his head. No, just someone with some rather remarkable abilities. What makes you think we can beat them? Mallory questions, starting to believe him. Simple. The lab coat Brit says. You have the hero of heroes here. If he can save worlds, galaxies, and the universe a multitude of times, that it should be a plot for cartoon show by this point. He can easily handle this. Paradox says to her with confidence, then looks out into the distance with bluebirds chirping. It's only a matter of time. Grace closes her eyes as she sheds a single tear before turning to Paradox's direction. But when she does, he's nowhere to be seen. Quickly looking, she can't see him, and as she goes back inside to check her cameras, she turns back to pick up the picture. Grace was now officially unretired. BEN10 Universe. It was nighttime in Niagara Falls, and everyone seemed to be sleeping. Ben and Gwen were in their respective bunks in Grandpa Max's rust bucket. Elena and Kimiko were in their bunks in the RV from the other dimension. Hugh was sleeping in the front passenger seat with MM and Frenchie sleeping booth. Butcher however was still up, stepping out for a butt of fresh air. He took a deep breath. He then hears someone clear their throat next to him and sees Max Tennyson. "Oi, you trying to give me a heart attack or something?" Max however is not amused. "We need to talk," he simply says. Butcher gestured for him to go on. "Talk away, mate. I know you're holding back something." Max says. "I'm not sure what, but to me it's clear you don't care about saving your world from these fake heroes." Pause. "And the little memory gap Ben has means he knew, and that's why you split up before he went to Syria." "Oi, you don't know dash," Butcher tries to deny. "I see it in your eyes." Max cut him off. "Every time someone said Homelander. That hate. I've seen people like you before." He recalls. "I doubt that." Butcher tells him. "People who've lost so much that they'll stop at nothing to get revenge." He replies. "Huh, I stand corrected." Butcher admits. "You're on our Earth now, so let me make this simple." Max says. "First, nothing of it to Ben, he's still a kid, it's better he forgets." Butcher nods. "Second, he's gonna wanna go back and help you folks, but when he's done he's out. Permanently, I don't care what happens." Butcher again nods. "No problem." Lastly and most important. Max continues and gets in Butcher's face. "If you hurt him or my granddaughter, in any sort of way and I find out about it, as old as I am I will make you regret it." The elder Tennyson threatens. Butcher seems shocked then chuckles slightly. "Had me there for second." Max just narrows his eyes, before he grabs Butcher's collar and throws him against the boy's rust bucket. Before Butcher could retaliate, Max pulls out a plumber gun and sticks it up Butcher's chin. "FYI. He begins. "I didn't retire 'cause I got old, it's 'cause I took care of all the alien trash like you." He informs him before he walks away, releasing Butcher. As Butcher massaged his neck he watched Max went back to his RV. "Well, holy wolf howl," Butcher commented before he went inside to get some sleep. Niagara Falls. It was the morning after Ben had accidentally returned from the boys' dimension, bringing the others along with him. Everyone was still asleep in their respective spots, Elena and Kimiko in the bunks, and Frenchie in the booth seats, and Huey and Butcher in the front seats. Suddenly, a knock at the door stirred them awake. Butcher, who had been napping in the driver's seat, was the first to rouse. He swung the door open to find Gwen standing outside. "Morning, everyone," she greeted. "Morning," Butcher replied, rubbing his eyes. "It was Gwen, right?" "Yeah." She nodded. "Listen, Butcher, Grandpa's making breakfast. So you can come over to the original rust bucket for some food." Butcher gave a polite smile. "Sounds good. We'll be over. Cheers." As Gwen walked off, Huey looked around and sighed. "You know what I love about mornings? Those few seconds after I wake up, before I remember the complete goat's cream my life's become. Yeah, well, at least us lot are in a dimension where those ahuga at Vought can't get us." Butcher replied. "Now let's go, rude to keep breakfast waiting. Please tell me someone else is finding that weird," Huey requests. At this point Hugh, better not to think about how weird all this eagle cry is. Said as he stretched. "This thing better have some regular coffee." Kimiko then signs to Elena, who responds with, "Something tells me it will get way weirder." Scene cut. On a picnic table outside, the Tennysons and the boys were sitting down, eating a spread of breakfast foods and last night leftovers. "Now this what you call a proper meal, no?" Frenchie commented, as the others were enjoying the food. "Sounds like you all hadn't had a decent meal," Max said. "It ain't that," replied. "Just a lot stuff like McDonald's, and stuff from bags," he informed. "McDonald's?" Gwen raised an eyebrow. "Fast food place, it's alright, but it seems like their burgers are tinier each time you go. Ben explained. Here's there are only 3 McDonald's in the country and all are on the West Coast. Max told him. Mac and PP were gonna sell to some schmuck named Ray Kroc. Guessed. Max turned to for a second before saying. Yeah. Pause. But there was rumors of alien activities near there, so the plumbers gave them money to use them bases and they were all over the country. Then when the threats passed we gradually shut all but a few down. He explained. Something I don't get. Butcher said, narrowing his eyes. We're ahead of this place by, what, 10 years? And yet, you lot have got alien tech straight out of like Star Wars and somehow managed to keep it a secret. Pause. How does work? Cold War. Max said simply. The whole thing was a ploy make everyone think we were gearing up to fight each other, when in reality, we were using the money to fight and protect the planet against aliens. Before anyone could ask another question, a loud crunch echoed through. All eyes turned to see Huey, casually munching on something from a plate. Sorry. He said through a mouthful of food. Now that all the adrenaline's worn off from almost dying, like 9 times, I'm starving. Max chuckled, offering a warm smile. Help yourself. Thanks. Huey said, scooping up another big spoonful of what he assumed was some kind of oatmeal completely oblivious to the disgusted looks Ben and Gwen were giving him. As he chewed, he paused. Really good. How do you get it so crunchy? Dung beetles. Ben and Gwen said in unison. Huey froze mid-chew, staring at them. Then, with a nervous chuckle, he waved them off. Haha, good one. You almost had me. He casually took another bite. Oh no, they're right. Max confirmed with an amused grin. Gotta use fresh beetles to get the taste just right. Huey's face went pale. His eyes darted to the plate, then back to Max. In an instant, he spat everything out, gagging as he bolted for a sink or a water fountain to rinse his mouth out. Where's the bleach? Or that? Frenchie, watching with curiosity, picked up a spoon and took a bite. He chewed thoughtfully, then nodded in approval, turning to Max with a grin. We have much to learn from each other. Just stares at Frenchie before saying. And still our Earth is more mess up. Scene cut. As people cleaned up outside, sat inside the RV, hunched over an old laptop old by his world standards. He was deep diving into this Earth's history, and what he found left him completely stunned. Just as the boys were stepping back inside while the kids finished clearing the table, suddenly shouted. Holy goat scream. Everyone turned to him in alarm. Huey, for some reason, glanced around, actually looking for a goat. What's the problem, No good cornos? Butcher joked, tossing away a half-eaten cob of corn. No, there's actually no problem. That's what's so messed up about this, replied, shaking his head in disbelief. Take a look at this. He gestured for them to crowd around the screen. Everything up until, like, World War II is pretty much the same as ours, but then look Korea, 1953. Huey leaned in, reading aloud from the tab. Korean leaders unite the country after civil war and agree to expel all Western and communist armies. Clicked to another tab. Frenchie scanned it and read aloud, Algeria, Morocco, and Tunisia join forces and gain independence from France after they refused terms for autonomy and pensions for free French veterans. Another tab. Butcher's eyes widened as he read, Royal family steps down after revealing their inbred, chicken clucking sound interrupts. Huey then turned, half expecting an actual chicken. Did you guys hear that? Huey asked, also scanning the room for a rogue bird. Ignored them and clicked another tab. Here, check this out. Assassination of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. foiled. It read. Another tab. Huey's jaw practically hit the floor. JFK survives assassination. He kept reading, eyes widening with every word. Gasp LBJ and many members of Congress and the Senate indicted and sentenced to prison for assassination plot to escalate conflict in Vietnam. Butcher leaned forward, now fully invested. Alright, what about 9/11? No way things are all sunshine and rainbows after that. Hesitated as he typed, then frowned. Actually. The boys tensed. It did happen, admitted. The group nodded solemnly, knowing the weight that event carried in their own world, the countless deaths, the wars, the excuses to strp away rights. But. Continued. It was actually 9/9 here, and it killed the owner of the building, who orchestrated the whole thing for a $2 billion insurance payout. The room fell silent for a second. Frenchie, still absorbing this, then muttered a curse was masked by a mole. A seemingly invisible cow. And continued, clicking through more tabs, that caught the guys a few months later in a joint operation between the Navy SEALs, Afghanistan, and Pakistani Special Forces. The boys stared in stunned silence. Anything else? Huey asked, still not expecting to be surprised. Typed in a few more things, then let out a low whistle. Oh yeah. After the operation, it came out that Bush knew about the whole thing and let it happen to win re-election. He's in jail now. With Trump, Epstein, Musk, Putin, and basically every politician and billionaire we know from our dimension. The room went dead quiet. Then Butcher let out a long, stunned whistle. What the hell? Is there any war happening in this world? Any at all? DRGS. Frenchie asked, looking hopeful. Anything? Huey added. I mean, this place literally feels like a paradise compared to ours. Aliens and all. Scanned the screen, scrolling rapidly. No wars. Just small conflicts that get sorted out real quick. No carpet bombings, no nuke crises, and Africa has its own independent currency, separate from the US dollar, thanks to Gaddafi. And the DRGS? Frenchie pressed. Squinted at the screen. Only for medicinal use. But apparently, when Pablo Escobar and El Chapo found out the US government was profiting off the trade and planned to take them out, they burned down their own operations and funded rebel groups to kick out foreign military influence. He shook his head. DMN. Economy. Minimum wage. Huey asked, throwing his hands up. Nothing major since the Great Depression. Replied. Apparently, anyone making over $1 billion is taxed at 100%. Under $1 billion? 50%. And a single person can fully support themselves on minimum wage alone. The boys all exchanged looks, processing the sheer insanity of what they were hearing. No wonder Benji has to deal with aliens, Butcher finally muttered, rubbing his face. They've got no other bloody problems to worry about. Where the Wilhelm screamed, did this place go right? Frenchie asked. Yeah, you said everything up to World War II was the same. Huey pointed out. What changed? Let's see. Once again began typing. Okay, Hitler shoots himself, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Berlin airlift, Mao Zedong yada yada, I think I found it. He concluded, showing the headline of a newspaper which read. Arabs victorious in Arab-Israeli war. Palestine gains independence as it expels Zionist terrorists. So basically this world is so much better cause Israel ain't in it? Butcher rhetorically questions. Ha. Frenchie muttered, rubbing his chin. So no decades of conflict, no proxy wars, no billions in foreign aid? Apparently not. Stated. So does that mean? Huey trailed off, not believing what he was thinking. That those Zionist pigs made our world a lot worse, and it would be better if they were wiped from the face of the earth. Butcher surmised. Well, that seems a little excessive. Huey replied. Just then Elena and Kimiko came in. Okay, we're ready to roll. Elena said. Ben's gonna go with his grandpa and cousin, at least until we get to a gas station. Speaking of which. Began, as he leaned back to see the dash. We're gonna need some too. Scene cut. Tennyson Rust Bucket. In the original Tennyson RV, Grandpa Max was behind the wheel, cruising down the highway with the boys' RV following closely behind. Inside, Ben and Gwen sat in the booth, watching the cars and the passing landscape. Well, Gwen was Ben, on the other hand, was completely absorbed in his handheld console, playing sumo slammers for the first time in what felt like months. Boom! New high score. He cheered, pumping his fist. I still got it. Gwen rolled her eyes but couldn't hide her curiosity. So, what else was different about their Earth? She'd already pried some details out of him, but the idea that Ben of all people got to visit a parallel universe was too intriguing to drop. Ben shrugged, still focused on his game. A bunch of stuff. Like what? She pressed. Who's the president? Ben finally glanced up. That realtor guy who painted himself orange. He snickered. The SNL skits about him are hilarious. Gwen blinked. Wait. Donald Trump? But she stopped, struggling to wrap her head around it. How? Ben smirked. 'Cause people are idiots over there. Plus, corruption, money, the usual. Vought had a lot to do with it, plus some weird Dutch guy named Musk. Gwen furrowed her brow. Musk? Like, Elon Musk? Yeah, except he's more of a cartoon supervillain. Ruined a social media site named after a bird, made people work like slaves, and somehow convinced nerds he was a genius. Even though he did nothing. Gwen groaned. And you mentioned a fake country? Ben grinned. Oh yeah. This place called, is real, . He made air quotes. Now that's a fake country if I've ever heard one. And you tried to tell me a country named Turkey was real. Gwen exhaled sharply. I'm letting that slide. Ben nodded solemnly. But the worst part? Gwen raised a brow. Dare I ask? Ben slammed his console onto the table dramatically. No sumo slammers. He declared, as if it were a world-ending crisis. Gwen deadpanned. Tragic. I mean, they've got all this other great stuff, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Pokemon, Bakugan, Digimon, though they ruined those eventually. But no sumo slammers. Unbelievable. Before Gwen could respond, an obnoxious, drawn-out honk 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 filled the air. Max frowned, gripping the wheel. What's going on today? Boys Rust Bucket. Butcher was driving and because of some reckless driver, almost crashed. You stupid honk. Who the honk do you think you are, you honk? Honk. Okay, how do you guys not notice that? Huey wondered. Notice what? Frenchie asked. Scene cut. The two identical RVs pull into a gas station, where several other vehicles are refueling. 'Cause of the order vehicles they could not be next each other, the Tennyson's going to pump 1 and the boys at pump 6. Huey and the boys step out of theirs, Kimiko and Elena go inside to pay and get snacks. I'm serious, it's like every time we try to swear there's a real-life censor. Frenchie and Butcher look at Huey like he's crazy. Okay, I'll prove it. Huey says. You've all seen Lethal Weapon, right? They nod except for Butcher, who shakes his head. Huey is slightly surprised at this and replies. How have you not seen? Never mind. Listen. He instructs before clearing his throat. I'm too old for this, dog barks. They all look to see a dog sitting at the door to the gas station. Was that dog always there? Asks, gesturing to the canine. Frenchie stares at the dog and opens his mouth to try and swear. But when he did, pop was what they heard, and they all turned to see a kid start crying 'cause his balloon popped. Flabbergasted exclaims. How the horse neighing. They all turned to a vehicle pulling a trailer of horses. Where did the horses come from? You see. Huey points out, and they finally start realizing what Huey meant. Butcher is not entirely convinced. He soon clears his throat, drinks some water from a water bottle he go before they left the falls, gargles it, spits it, takes a deep breath. KRNNCHHHKKKTCHNKTCHNKSKRE. They all turn to see a man operating a blender with metal in the container for some reason. Okay, back to back. Butcher requests. They all get in a circle facing outwards to see where the next Sayonara noise will come from. 3, 2, 1 now. Boom, they don't see anything initially, but a helicopter soon comes into view as it's falling from a short distance away. Nobody sees a brief green flash before Four Arms jumps in to catch it. As they stare in shock speaks. Did we just? Maybe we should stop trying. Suggest. We. Frenchie agrees with a nod. Butcher scoffs. Well, this is a bunch dash, he tries to speak, but covers his mouth. Butcher, if the next thing that comes out of your mouth ain't PG like we're in a cartoon, do not say it. Warns. 'Cause otherwise I'm gonna boom. They turn to see that after Four Arms rescued the occupants, the helicopter exploded. My bad. Just the Elena and Kimiko came it, snacks in tow, and saw the wreckage. What did we miss? Elena asked. Some time later. The pilot of the helicopter was being interviewed by the police, who was flabbergasted. I'm not sure what happened, I always triple check everything before takeoff and it was fine, then suddenly the thing stalls on me. He tells the officer. Meanwhile, the Tennysons and the boys had just finished refueling their vehicles and were coordinating where they were about to go. Weird how that helicopter crashed, huh? Gwen commented. Crazy. Elena added with a knowing look towards the boys. Kimiko then signed to Elena, who replied. Yeah, pretty sure no one could have thought of this. To which Kimiko signed in agreement. Well, both our rides are fueled up, and while yours might need some work, it should be good for at least a few days. Max commented after checking the engine, tapping the hood. Just don't let it run out of gas. That reminds me. Huey said, frowning. This thing's packed with high-tech gear, but it runs on gasoline. Why not something more advanced? Like a self-sustaining power core? Max suggested. Yeah, or even rocket fuel or something. Huey replied. Max chuckled. Oh, we've got that tech, but it's not exactly subtle. The plumbers operate under the radar, so unless absolutely necessary, our vehicles are modified to run on standard fuel to blend in. He smirked. Besides, do you have any idea how expensive rocket fuel is? Crossed his arms and looked at Ben. So what now? Ben grinned. Now you guys get to see how awesome my world is. We could fight some evil robots, or maybe stop an alien invasion. Huey raised a hand. Maybe we could just see the sights. Ben waved him off. Don't worry, I can feel it. Whatever happens next is gonna be awesome. Later. Ben slumped in disappointment, arms hanging limply at his sides. This is the opposite of awesome. They were standing in the middle of a honey festival. Booths lined the streets, offering jars of honey in every shade of gold, beeswax candles, and all sorts of honey-infused treats. Cheerful folk music played in the background as families strolled by, enjoying the festivities. Max chuckled, patting Ben on the back. Cheer up. After the adventure you've had, some peace and quiet will do you good. Ben groaned. Grandpa, I promised the guys a cool adventure. Not some lame honey festival. Huey, on the other hand, was happily munching on a honey bar. He looked up, eyes wide with delight. Actually, I'm totally fine with this. Have you guys tried these? They're amazing. Ben groaned again, dragging a hand down his face. Great. I bring you guys to another dimension, and this is what we get. Not aliens, not evil robots, just a bunch of bees and overpriced honey. Gwen smirked, not missing the opportunity to tease him. Oh no, how tragic. You mean you're not enjoying the thrilling world of artisanal honey? Smirked, taking a sip of honey-infused lemonade. You say that like it's a bad thing. I dunno, man, this is the most relaxed I've been since, before Butcher brought me back. Elena looked toward some bee-themed knickknacks. It does kinda feel refreshing to do something without having to worry about getting attacked by Vought. She commented as she and Kimiko licked some honey-infused chocolate treats. Frenchie nodded in agreement as he admired a small beeswax sculpture of a 19th-century man posing stoically. And look at this craftsmanship. So delicate, so intricate. You can tell they put their heart into this. Why thank you. The owner stated from behind her counter. Thought about making it life-size but didn't have the wax or the time. Butcher, on the other hand, looked like he wanted to set the entire festival on fire. This is bollocks. We could have been cracking skulls, blowing up some bloody soup's hell, I'd even take a nice, quiet heist over this. He gestured at the nearest stand. Instead, we're stuck at a sodding bee parade. Pops a bee-themed balloon, as they walked. Huey took another bite of his honey bar, humming in approval. I don't know what you're complaining about, Butcher. This stuff is nice. Ben huffed, crossing his arms as he kicked at a stray pebble. Nice doesn't cut it, Huey. I promised you guys action. Explosions. Bad guys to punch. He threw his arms up in frustration. Instead, we're stuck at a bee parade. Gwen rolled her eyes. Oh yes, because clearly, we should all be disappointed that there isn't an alien invasion, or a natural disaster or a sea monster attack happening right now. She grabbed a honey stick from a nearby booth and gave Ben a pointed look. Maybe if you stop sulking for 5 seconds, you'll realize not every good moment has to involve punching something, or blowing it up. Ben, your cousin is right. Max told him. Ben muttered something under his breath, but before he could argue, a loud voice rang out over the festival speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, gather around. It's time for the highlight of our event, the unveiling of the world's largest honeycomb sculpture. A small crowd started gathering near a raised platform in the center of the festival. Standing next to it was a grand display covered with a large golden cloth. The announcer, an older man in a bee-themed vest, grinned with excitement. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for, behold, the Queen's triumph. With a dramatic flourish, he yanked the cloth away, revealing an enormous beeswax sculpture of a regal-looking queen bee, standing triumphant atop a honeycomb throne. The detailing was impressive, every groove and ridge expertly carved. The crowd let out an appreciative cheer. The mayor, a middle-aged Caucasian male, took center stage, basking in the applause of the festival-goers. He adjusted his bee-patterned tie, flashing a wide, confident grin as he tapped the microphone. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it's I, your humble Mayor Winslow. He began, his voice rich with self-importance. Today, we don't just celebrate honey. We celebrate progress. A ripple of polite applause spread through the crowd. He then took the mic and began speaking as he paced the stage a bit. For a long time, our town has been known for its world-class honey, but we didn't stop there. No, why settle for great when we can be the best? He spread his arms wide, gesturing toward a large poster beside him. It displayed an artist's rendition of a sprawling honey farm, complete with rows upon rows of brand new beehives. To make way for this ambitious expansion, we clearing out those old, rotting buildings near the east side of town. He continued. They were nothing but eyesores. Now, in their place, we've built state-of-the-art beekeeping facilities, more hives, more bees, more honey. The crowd cheered, delighted at the prospect of increased production and economic growth. Children waved their little bee-shaped balloons, and vendors raised their honey sticks in celebration. For a town like this, that's certainly ambitious. Max commented. Then the air shifted. A sharp, shrill whistle cut through the festival, sending an unnatural silence rippling through the crowd. Then the buzzing began. Something tells me that's not good. Elena commented. Just then behind the stage the mayor was using a wave of bugs rose up. Greetings, Mr. Mayor. Are you enjoying the festivities? A voice asked as the insects parted away, revealing one of Ben's old foes, Clancy. As the Tennysons and the boys including Kimiko and Elena watched, Butcher's face twisted in confusion. What in the bollocks is that? Clancy? Max questioned. Haven't seen him in a while. Finally some action. Ben commented, a little too excited. Gwen groaned, rubbing her temples. Ben, this is not the time to get excited about Dash. His cousin then stopped as she noticed Ben had gone somewhere to shift into an alien without being spotted. Ah, hell nah, muttered, stepping back as the swarm approached and pulled out some hand sanitizer, squirting a bit on his hands. Nope. Nope. This cannot be happening. He's just a soup. Frenchie pointed out. From here, he's not the 7. Bugs, Frenchie. Bugs. Pointed, gesturing to all the swarms flying around, terrorizing people. I ain't about to be messing with no DMN bugs, man. Swatted at the air as a particularly aggressive hornet buzzed past his face. This is some straight-up horror movie nonsense. Oi. Butcher called out, as he stomped a large beetle near him. Let's do less talking, more fixing this mess before the whole town turns into a bloody bug buffet. Just then, a massive cluster of locusts surged toward them, forcing them all to duck and cover their heads. Let out a frustrated groan. Nah, man, I am not about to die in a dang bee parade. Just focus on getting people to safety. Max stated. Ben will take care of Clancy, then they'll scatter. He seems like a Disney movie reject, is he tough? Elena asked. He almost nuked a city and was gonna survive it using a suit made of cockroaches. Gwen informed it, giving the boys shivers. Meanwhile the mayor was cowering in fear as bugs were around him, while screams filled the air as festival-goers panicked, knocking over booths and trampling decorations in their frantic attempt to flee. Vendors abandoned their stands, their carefully crafted honey displays crashing to the ground. Why are you doing this? The mayor asked. Clancy went up to him until he was only a few inches away from his face. You're a murderer. He simply stated. But I never dash, the mayor tried to explain. You tore down those buildings, tore up that land without a second thought. You wiped out colonies of beetles, centipedes, roaches, millions of lives, gone. All so you could make your precious honey. That's not even the worst part. Clancy clarifies. You act like only honeybees matter, but what about the others? What about the insects that had homes there before you destroyed them? His hands clenched into fists. Did you even think before you took their land? Or were they just pests to you? Just things to exterminate? The mayor gulps in fear. As the chaos unfolded, a burst of heat cut through the buzzing swarm. Flames erupted in the air as Ben, now transformed into Heat Blast, landed on the scene, specifically the stage. He flung a fireball to one side, stopping a sizable group of bugs from attacking a vendor, who was ushered to safety by Grandpa Max. Then swung his right arm in a right arc to stop another swarm from doing the same to a couple of festival-goers. Heat Blast then faced towards Clancy. You know, I've dealt with a lot of bug problems before. He quipped, cracking his fiery knuckles. But you're like every pest control guy's worst nightmare. Clancy turned, his eyes narrowing as he glared at the burning hero. You would side with them. He spat. Typical. You only see insects as nuisances. Heat Blast sighed. How about we skip the villain monologue and just get to the part where I kick your butt? Gets into a stance, his fiery hands getting even hotter. Clancy let out a low, eerie chuckle. You think fire is going to stop me? He replied as new insects emerged, all swarming toward Clancy. The moment they reached him, they clung to his body, layer upon layer, until he was encased in an eerie, pulsating suit of living armor. Their shells gleamed with an unnatural toughness that seemed to get more imposing as Clancy stepped down. Heat Blast just smirked in response, as he readied a fireball in both hands. Nice, I love a big target. He then thrusted it straight towards Clancy, who made no attempts to block or dodge the flaming projectile. When it made contact, the bugs took it like it was nothing. Well, that's gonna be a problem. Heat Blast throws some more fireballs, but these yielded similar results. Why ain't Bugsy over there turning into a crispy critter? Butcher asked from behind some cover with Max, as Clancy stood completely unfazed, the flames washing over his insect armor like a warm breeze. Max narrowed his eyes. Melanophila acuminata. The older man stated, then turned to the Brit. They're fire-resistant beetles, and since he has a suit of them it's gonna be tricky for Ben. Clancy soon lunged at the alien. Heat Blast barely had time to react before the villain's fist, now reinforced by a writhing mass of Melanophila acuminata, slammed into his side. The impact sent Ben skidding across the stage, his flames sputtering for a moment before he caught himself. He groaned, rubbing his ribs. Oh great, fireproof bugs. That's just what I needed. Clancy stepped forward, his new armored form clattering with each movement. The Melanophila acuminata beetles, infamous for being drawn to wildfires, clung to him like living armor, their shells barely reacting to Heat Blast's intense heat. Their natural resistance made his flames all but useless. Ben clenched his fists, flames flaring hotter. Alright, no more Mr. Nice Pyro. He launched a stream of fire straight at Clancy, but the beetles didn't even flinch. The flames rolled harmlessly off them as Clancy advanced, completely unfazed. Clancy tilted his head, his voice filled with smug satisfaction. Did you really think I'd face someone like you without a plan? My little friends here love the heat. They thrive in it. You can't burn them, or me. Crud. Heat Blast replied with some frustration. Meanwhile, the other Tennysons and the boys have been getting people to safety, whole avoiding swarms of various bugs. This is not my idea of a fun afternoon. Said, as he stomped on some bugs. Do these things ever stop? As long as Clancy is around, the bugs won't stop. Max tells him, after directing some folks to safety. Ben can beat this guy, right? Elena asked, as Kimiko shielded her when some more insects buzzed by. Just then a crash was heard. They then turned to see Heat Blast rubbing his head after being thrown into a vendor's booth. Right? Elena asked, a little more unsure now. Ben needs help. Max told everyone as he narrowed his eyes. No geez, old timer, but in case you haven't noticed, besides our mute female of the species, none of us can do squat. Butcher pointed out as he swung a crowbar at a cluster of insects on a table. Doesn't mean we can't try. Max reminded him. Frenchie agreed, who had been eyeing the festival decorations, suddenly grinned. All we need is to get a little creative. He pointed toward a massive festival display, a giant decorative honey jar sitting atop a rickety wooden stand. That much honey? CA put Marcher. It will slow him down. Huey blinked. Okay, but how do we drop it on him? Kimiko answered by cracking her knuckles. Fair enough. Huey muttered. I go tell Ben, you get that honey. Down. Max said TI them, before running towards Ben. Butcher, Huey, let's get that stand weak enough to tip over. Frenchie ordered, taking charge. Mon cur, when it's ready, you push. They then went to get into position. Meanwhile, Heat Blast was still trying to battle Clancy with little success. With a grunted, Heat Blast hit the ground after Clancy and his bug-armored fist scored a hit, again. Ben. The transformed 10-year-old heard, He looked to see his grandpa ducking behind a table, gesturing with his finger where to go. "Get him by your friends," the elder Tennyson instructed. Ben nodded before getting up and threw some fireball at Clancy, getting his attention, before running towards the direction his grandpa pointed as Heat Blast kept Clancy occupied. And Huey got to work. They tore loose wooden panels, knocked over support crates, and shoved at the base. "I dunno how long this'll hold," Huey grunted. "Then let's make it quick," replied. "Here he comes." Elena called out as she saw Heat Blast run towards them, before directing Ben where to go. As Ben ran by and Clancy was near, Frenchie gave the signal for Kimiko, who rushed forward, leaped onto the weakening structure, and with a single devastating kick, sent the whole thing toppling. "Move!" Butcher bellowed. The team dove aside as the massive honey jar crashed directly onto Clancy. Crash! Glass shattered, and an avalanche of thick, golden honey engulfed him. His beetles thrashed, their legs and wings gummed up as they tried and failed to escape the sticky flood. "No!" Clancy exclaimed in frustration as he tried to move, but found it difficult to do so. "It's working! It's working!" Huey exclaimed as he jumped for joy, grabbing as he did so. "Yes, we can all see it's working, Huey, now get OFF," told him. As Gwen watched Clancy struggle, she suddenly remembered what she learned in an organic chemistry class. That honey, it's all organic, right?" she asked a worker. Yeah, all the honey here is organic," the worker replied. "No preservatives, straight from the hive." Gwen then turned to Ben and called out, "Hey, charcoal guy!" Getting his attention. "Pour it on," she instructed. "Fire doesn't work, dweeb," Heat Blast reminded her. Groaning, Gwen slapped her head, mentally chastising herself for expecting Ben to be knowledgeable about science. "Organic honey is flammable and can catch fire at high temperature. Which he's convert in doofus," she tells him. "Oh." Ben realizes, then raised his hands and blasted the honey with concentrated heat. The golden mess sizzled instantly, the thick, sticky liquid boiling and caramelizing. The beetles shrieked, their exoskeletons built for heat but not for the scalding, bubbling syrup trapping them and Clancy, though some tried to get away. "No!" Clancy roared as he tried to move, but eventually found himself trapped. The gang watched as the last of the beetles abandoned him, leaving Clancy encased in the burnt, hardening honey. The festival goers, still shaken, hesitantly peeked out from their hiding spots, murmuring in awe at the bizarre takedown. Butcher let out a short, impressed whistle. "Well, that's one way to deep fry a soup." Frenchie nodded approvingly. "Like a creme brulee but with a side of vengeance," he said, licking his fingers which had some honey on it. Kimiko simply tilted her head, smirking slightly. Elena exhaled, crossing her arms. "Remind me never to underestimate honey." Heat Blast flicked a smoldering honey glob off his arm and stretched. "Welp, that was a sticky situation." Gwen groaned. "I take back helping you." Just as they started to relax, there was a sudden shift, a sickening squelch as something moved beneath the hardened honey. "That doesn't sound good," Huey stated, as everyone took a step back. "What the started, but before he could finish, a section of the honey burst apart, a swarm of small, fast-moving insects spilling out. "Ah, son of a!" Butcher jumped back as the swarm rushed toward the nearest sewer grate. Huey squinted. "Wait, where's?" Clancy was gone, all that remained trapped in the hardened honey, was some off-the bugs he was using earlier. Frenchie let out a low whistle. "That is unsettling." Heat Blast groaned. "Great. Of course he has an escape plan. I'll get him." As Ben was gonna go after Clancy, an old and distinsive beep 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 was heard, followed by a bright red flash that blinded the gang as Ben became human. "Aw man." Ben groaned. "I almost forgot what that sounded like." What happened? Butcher exclaimed, since the boys only see Ben transform back into human willingly. Why'd Benji go from soup to pipsqueak? Yeah, before I met you guys the watch only lets me stay an alien for a little while. Ben informed him. Then it needs to recharge a bit. He added with a sigh. Butcher ran a hand down his face, clearly annoyed. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So we almost had that bug-eyed TWT, and now you tell me you've got a bloody time limit? Ben shrugged. Hey, I don't exactly get a warning either. It just times out whenever it wants. One time I was gray matter for like hours. Guys. Elena chimed in. Where's the mayor? As they looked around, Max spoke. Clancy must have taken him. But where? More importantly. Added. Why was he attacking this place? A honey festival? Doesn't make sense. Gwen, deep in thought, suddenly snapped her fingers. Wait. What if it does? You want to run that by again? Butcher asked, unimpressed. Gwen crossed her arms. Think about it. This festival's huge. The city's been pushing honey production hard the last couple of years. New beehives, new farms, and the like expanding into areas that probably weren't being used before. Like places where his little creepy crawlers used to live. Elena realized, looking at the image the mayor displayed earlier. Old abandoned factory. The old factory reeked of rust and decay, its broken windows letting in the faint glow of the city beyond. Inside, the rhythmic chittering of countless beetles echoed off the cracked concrete walls, their tiny bodies swarming across every surface like a living tide. Mayor Winslow dangled from the ceiling, wrapped in thick layers of silk-like secretion hardened into a cocoon. His suit was torn, his face pale with fear as he struggled against his bindings. Below him, Clancy paced with cold deliberation, his arms crossed behind his back. His swarm shifted restlessly, forming a writhing, buzzing perimeter around the factory floor. Clancy on a moving pile insect spoke. You ever think about what it feels like? Clancy mused, stopping until he was a few inches from the mayor's face. To be ripped apart. To be swarmed, piece by piece, as your body is consumed. The mayor squirmed, sweat dripping down his temple. It was a business decision. He pleaded. The honey industry is booming. We needed the land, and regulations were followed, I swear. Tell me, Winslow, when you were signing those papers, when you were greenlighting those bulldozers, did you even once think about the lives you were snuffing out? Did you hear the screams? His voice dropped to a venomous whisper. Because I did. He turned, motioning toward a large blueprint pinned to the wall, an architectural rendering of a massive honey processing plant, complete with sterile, industrial hives. You took everything from them. Clancy seethed. So now, I take everything from you. The mayor's eyes widened. No. Oh yes. Clancy sneered. And once your little honey empire is reduced to ash. He gestured to a swarm of beetles below. They'll have their feast. The swarm trembled with anticipation, the air thick with the sound of countless mandibles clicking in unison. The mayor thrashed in desperation. Please. There's got to be another way. Clancy just stared at him, his expression devoid of mercy. You didn't give them another way. Scene cut. The Tennyson family, flanked by the boys, Elena, and Kimiko, moved cautiously through the eerily quiet construction zone. The vibrant festival artwork still clung to banners and signs, cheerful bees, bright golden honeycombs, and slogans like, "A sweeter tomorrow," and, "Be the change." The ground beneath them was uneven, a mix of freshly dug dirt and abandoned steel frames. Half-finished foundations sprawled between rusting construction vehicles and the hollow shells of old factories still standing amid the so-called progress. The mayor has to be around here somewhere. Max said, scanning the area. This place looks like it got into a fight with itself. Huey muttered, carefully stepping over a tangle of rebar. Looks like Vaught's wet dream. Butcher grunted, kicking a rusted bolt aside. Corporate land grab dressed up as a community project. No wonder that bug guy went crazy. Added, eyeing a bent crane looming overhead. Well, he was already crazy. Ben pointed out. He wanted to nuke a city because his house got torn down. But you stopped him, right? Asked, glancing over. Sorta. Ben replied with a shrug. Heat blast froze the power plant before he could blow it up. Pardon, but isn't he the one better at making creme brulee than a pots de creme? Frenchie chimed in. Ben gave him a blank look. Huh. He means heat blast ain't exactly the bloke you call to cool things down. Butcher clarified with a smirk. Oh. Yeah. Ben nodded. I got sick, and I guess it messes with the watch sometimes. In the middle of summer? Huey asked, raising an eyebrow. How do you even get sick this time of year? Ben hesitated, then scratched the back of his neck. Well, you know, after chasing a robber. Gwen cut in with an amused jumped into the back of a refrigerated ice cream truck for a victory snack and got a cold. The boys burst out laughing. Seriously? Frenchie laughed. You, who can turn into aliens, got taken out by Vanilla Swirl. It was good ice cream, okay? Ben groaned. Your secret's safe with us, hero. Butcher said with a smirk. Maybe. Kimiko signed something quickly, her lips twitching with a smile. She wants to know what other dumb stories you haven't told us. Elena translated. I've told you basically everything, Ben insisted. Gwen rolled her eyes. Let me guess, you were always the flawless hero. Ben struck a heroic pose, fists on his hips, one foot perched on a discarded paint can. Can't help it if it's true. Hey guys. Huey called out, pointing to one of the newly completed buildings nearby. Maybe we should check in here. But just then, a deep rumbling started to echo across the site. The laughter faded. A second later, they heard the sharp hum of wings and then the screaming collapse of the building Huey had pointed to, as a swarm of insects burst through it like a living wrecking ball. We need to move. Max urged everyone. Oh, is that so? Butcher replied sarcastically. 'Cause I thought staying here would have been a terrific idea. He added as they all ran away from the insects. Time for 4 arms to squash these bugs. Ben spoke as he dialed his alien hero and slammed the dial. Green flash. However, instead of the 4 arms Ben became Wildvine. Come on. He exclaimed, very annoyed. Great. Gwen remarked. You can threaten them with a balanced diet. Ben, find the mayor. Grandpa Max ordered. We'll distract the pests. Got it. Wildvine replied, then lashed a vine to a steel beam and launched himself away, vanishing into the twisted maze of construction and scaffolding. Was that a good idea? Huey asked, concerned as Ben was their biggest defense. But they did not have time to debate. Split up. Ordered. The group broke apart just as the swarm descended, each team being chased by a different cluster of furious bugs. Scene cut. Huey, Kimiko, and Butcher bolted down a narrow lane between concrete blocks as a pack of chunky beetles thundered after them, clacking and skittering with surprising speed. Why are these things running like they've got somewhere to be? Huey shouted, before stumbling over some loose bricks. They're beetles, not bloody Uber drivers. Butcher barked, yanking Huey up and charging toward a stack of PVC pipes. Move. Kimiko gestured sharply and pointed ahead to an open hatch in the ground. No questions asked. They dived for it. Scene cut. Frenchie, Elena, and Gwen were chased by a shrieking cloud of wasps, the air vibrating around them. I swear these things are targeting us. Elena yelled, batting one off her shoulder as she ran. Maybe it's the shampoo. Frenchie called back. It screams nectar. It said embrace nature, not invite an attack. Gwen shouted, shielding her head with her hands as the three ran away from the wasps. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 19. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author AU Fan62 on fanfiction.net. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.